Hey guys, welcome to my Samoan language instruction chapter 5. Welcome to chapter 5. The first lesson in this chapter is before and after, and here's some vocabulary for you. Let's get started. So the notion of before in Samoan is usually expressed as while not yet. Okay? So this is how I say before in Samoan. And when I say before in Samoan, this isn't always the case, but it usually doesn't include a tense marker. So it does not include a tense marker, and it normally comes towards the end of the sentence. Obviously, these aren't hard rules, but these are normalities. Okay, these are what usually happen. Again, you can use these clauses of before at the beginning of the sentence, but it's for stylistic effect or to promote emphasis. We do the same thing in English. The way that I say before in Samoan is one of two ways, aula'i and aila'i. And again, these aren't directly translated as before, as mentioned above. They're directly translated as while not yet, but they are the Samoan equivalents of the English notion before. Okay, so let's translate these sentences together. Okay, so before the children came, let's translate that together. And I'm going to use a red pen as I'm writing in Samoan this time. Thought I'd change it up. And before the children came, so I'm just going to just use one of the befores right here. Okay, and as I mentioned above. I normally don't include a tense marker. So, with that information, and again, this is kind of my stylistic effect or to promote emphasis. I'm stating before at the beginning of the sentence. Okay, and so aula'i is first, and then how would I translate the rest of the sentence right here? The children came. And again, don't use a tense marker. Just kind of omit that. Just skip that part. Okay. So how do I say come or came? So I would say, oh my, okay? So that's my predicate or my verb or my action, whichever way that you've learned it. And then the doer or the subject of the sentence, the one doing the action, is the children, okay? So oh my to mighty, okay? And that is an I right there. Maybe I should fix that. That's an I. Can't see those dots very well, but anyways, I think you get the point. So this is how I translate the highlighted section. Aula'i o mai to mighty. Okay, and the reason why I don't normally use a tense marker in this part of the sentence, this clause in the sentence, is because the other part of the sentence kind of tells you where the tense is taking place. Okay, so you'll note that in my second part of the sentence, the second clause, I clean the house, I will have a tense marker. Okay, so how would I translate I clean the house? Just as if you were just going to translate this by itself. Okay, so it's past tense, and then the thing that I'm going to use after is a descriptive pronoun, so that'll come right after the tense marker. And then my cleaned is my thing that follows it, and that's tapenaina, and this is in the perfective form. And then the subject is the house, le fale. Okay, and so the reason why I put o right here before my predicate, my tapenaina, that's acting as the predicate or the verb, I guess, in this case. And the reason why I do that is because I'm using a descriptive pronoun. Okay, so hopefully translating these sentences together helps, and then you can practice doing that on your own. Okay, and then the next sentence is, let's just again do the first clause of the sentence, and that's they will memorize the lesson. Okay, so this part doesn't have the before in it, and so I will have a tense marker. So this olea will take place because it's in the future tense. They will kind of indicates to me a future tense. Olea, and then I didn't really clarify. You could use lato or la, and in this case I'm just going to use la for those two. Will memorize the lesson before the teacher comes back. And again, if you wanted to, you could do memorize and then the emphatic forms of that. You could say olea tau loto. By the way, that is what comes next. Olea tau loto I la ua. You could do that, but that's not the normal way of saying things. We normally, when we get the chance of using descriptive pronouns, we use that because we're wanting to put an emphasis on the memorize part, and that's how we do that in Samoan. We use descriptive pronouns. So, oleala tauloto, and then the lesson, le lessona, okay? So hopefully, barely got that in, but hopefully, again, you were able to come up with a sentence just like this, or that it's making sense, okay? So, and the way that you'll really know that things are making sense is when we get to the practice examples, and you can start to construct these sentences on your own. If you're having a hard time doing that, then come back to how we translate this together, and then just try to translate it the way that you've been seeing it this whole time. Okay, so let's just move on to the second part of the clause, and that is before the teacher came back. And again, normally I don't use a tense marker in the clause that has a before. So how would I translate? So again, I will start off with before. So this time I'm just gonna, for the sake of argument, use the other form of the before, okay? And then how would I translate the next part of the sentence? The teacher comes back, okay? And again, no tense marker, so just skip that part. So what would I put? I'd put my action or my verb, and that's comes back. So again, come is the way that I say comes back in Samoan. So toi, this is one of those adverbs that it's the exception. It comes before the verb. So toi sao is the way that I say come back. And then who's the one that's doing the coming back is the teacher. So that's le faya onga. Okay? And that wasn't the best handwriting, but I think you can read it. Okay, so let's move on to our third example and translate that together. Okay, so again, I read the book before. So before we get to before, no pun intended. I read the book. That's our first part of the sentence. That's the first clause. So how would I say I read the book? So again, I would use a tense marker because this part of the sentence doesn't have before. So sa o. Again, I'm using a descriptive pronoun that will come before my verb. So that's fai, tau, ina, and that is using the perfective form. Because, why is it using the perfective form? Well, a lot of times when I use descriptive pronouns, man, I can't write and talk at the same time. A lot of times when I use descriptive pronouns, the perfective form takes place, and that's because I can see the totality of me reading the book. I can see the action of me starting to read the book and completing the book. Maybe not reading the whole book, but completing the action of reading the book, and that's why I use this perfective suffix at the end. And if you need help on that, I would encourage to go back to that perfective versus imperfective video. Okay, so that's the first clause of the sentence, okay? And let's just move on to the second clause, the one that has the before, the topic that we're discussing today. So before you two went to the chapel, so I did a better job of clarifying the amount of people this time. So again, I'm going to start off with just one of my befores, and Aula is the one that I chose, and then you two went to the chapel. So how would I translate you two went to the chapel without a tense marker? Okay, so I would use my descriptive pronoun again because you two is the people doing the action. So lua, and then my predicate is my verb in this case, and so that's o, and o is the plural form of go. So, and then to the chapel is my prepositional phrase, and so that is, I guess that should have that on it. And so, ile, fale, sa. Okay? So hopefully, again, translating these sentences are helping, and we're going to move on. So, the next part is when you see tense markers used with the same clause of before, okay? So I will see a tense marker in this case, and that is when I see the non-past tense marker te, okay? So before, we did see some descriptive pronouns, okay? We saw descriptive pronouns, but we didn't see the tense marker te that needed to be used. Okay, so these were all past tense or future tense. So future tense, past tense, past tense. Okay, so when I use the non-past tense marker te, then I do use a descriptive pronoun. Or sorry, obviously I use a descriptive pronoun, but I also use this te le'i. Okay, so it's a little bit different of a sentence structure. So basically, the sentence structure most often follows this form, where it has an independent clause, and what an independent clause is something that can stand on its own. It'll have that tense marker, and then it'll have, I guess I should be writing in black because I'm writing in English pretty much. It'll have that tense marker, and then it'll have the subject and the object. Okay, or you can think of it as an action and a doer, or anything like that. So anything that you can just leave it on its own, that begins the sentence normally. Then I'll have an I. You've seen this I in my last slide in this form of the version before. So you'll use this form of the version of before. Then I'll use some form of a descriptive pronoun. Okay. Then I'll use te le'i. Okay. So I know this might not make sense yet. Just kind of follow me, and you'll see that this pattern works. And then I'll have a dependent clause. So a dependent clause is something that needs another clause, and that's what this needs. It doesn't have a tense marker, and the te le'i acts as the tense marker. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense. If it's not making sense, then let's go over some examples. Okay, so what I'm basically saying here is this independent clause is right here. The girl was sad. Okay, so everything that comes before is the independent clause. So I could translate this again, and for the sake of time, I'm not going to go over it as slowly. But the girl was sad. This is a past tense, so I use the past tense marker na, and then my action word, or my predicate, na fa'anoa noa le tene. Okay, so that's how I would say that independent clause. I could write this as a sentence. I could put a period right here if I wanted to. But again, I'm going to add to that same idea, and I'm going to add some more clauses, and I'm going to use before. So then the thing that comes right after this independent clause is my I. Okay, so my I comes right after it. So imagine that I left that up there, and so I just wrote I. Okay, and then the next thing is a descriptive pronoun comes right after that. So in this sentence, where's my pronoun after the independent clause? So I'm done with this part. We don't have to worry about that for now. I'm going to cover it up a little more. So in this second clause, where is the descriptive pronoun? And there's two. There's one that I put in parentheses, and in this case, you don't have to say her in this case. So the one that I'm going to tell you to use is the I. That's going to be the next thing. Before I gave, so I comes next, and so that will be O. Okay, that's the descriptive form of I. And then I'll have, you'll see, I need to get rid of some of this stuff. So we're at this part of the sentence. So I, and then O, I'm done with this, and I'm done with the descriptive pronoun, and then te le'i. Okay, so what I've done here is basically I've split up my before, I, and my le'i, and what I put in between the I le'i is a descriptive pronoun and a te. Okay, so when I want to have a te tense marker in the second clause, then I have to split up my I le'i. And the way that I do that is I have the I come first, then I'll have a descriptive pronoun, then the te, then the le'i. So this will take some time getting used to. And honestly, if you have a hard time with this, this is okay, but you just need a lot more exposure to it, okay? So just remember that don't get flustered in this part. This will take some time to get the hang of. Okay, so just remember though, when you see I and then a descriptive pronoun and then a te and then a le'i, that is just, for some reason, a fancy way they say before in Samoan. Okay, So I did that part of the sentence. So let's do the next part. Gave her some food. So gave some food. The her in this case is implied, and that's just something that you're going to have to get used to, is knowing when they imply some things. If I wanted to, I could do her, but a lot of times in Samoan they won't include it. So I'm done with this part of the sentence. We've talked about na whānoa noa te ni titi, ai te le'i, and then the red portion that I've underlined is what I need to translate next. So gave avatua, and if I wanted to, I could say ni or say mea ai. Okay, so either one, and that is how we translate that sentence. Okay, so moving on to our next sentence, and again, I don't want you to get flustered, but I do want you to get some practice with this. Okay, so those guys will bathe is what I'm going to say first. And so I use my future tense marker again. Okay, olea tae ele. And the reason why it's tae ele is because it's multiple people bathing. If it was just one person bathing, it'd be ta. You would skip this part. You would say ta ele. Okay, but there's multiple people bathing, so it's tae ele. Will bathe, and the guys are the ones that are bathing, and it's those guys. So le vainga lea. And if I wanted to, there's different ways of saying that, but we're not going to get into that. Just remember that you can say those guys as le vainga lea. And so moving on to the next portion, the before. So then before they go to church, and I'm going to again use my same sentence structure, I, then my descriptive pronoun is la, to, in this case I'm going to do the plural go, and then I lato te le'i o I le lotu. Okay? So hopefully you're starting to see how this pattern is working. You have I, then I have a descriptive pronoun, and then I have the tense marker te, and then le'i. So for again, I don't know why they do it this way, but this is one of the hardest ways. Sorry, this is a hard version of before, and I think we need a little bit more practice. So what I'm going to ask is, again, you can use before at the beginning of the sentence with these kinds of sentence structures. And you can do it in this sentence structure. Okay, so the first one was that, and the second one is the one on the bottom. And basically what I'm asking you is to take these same sentences, so this sentence and that sentence, and basically translate them into the bottom sentence structure. Okay, so I would like you to pause the video and try to translate that same sentence into the bottom sentence structure. Okay, if you're having a little trouble, what basically all you do, the only difference between the bottom sentence structure and the top is I take this independent clause and I move it to the bottom, to the back. Okay, so you'll know that I have everything is that way, and the independent clause is at the back. And the way that I would say that in my Samoan sentence, or sorry, my English sentence, is I take this part that was before the before and I move it to the back. That's all I do. I move it to the back. And same with this sentence, those guys will bathe, and I move this part of the sentence to the back. Okay, so just do that. Okay, so before I gave her some food, sorry, I should probably write with so again, I should write with the black pen. Before I gave, and then the her is implied, her some food, okay? And then you say the rest of the sentence. The girl was sad. The girl, and I'm not going to have enough room, but I think you get the idea. The girl was sad, okay? So let's try to see what you translated, and I'm just going to go really speedily this time for the sake of time in this video. So the way that I would translate this is basically I would just I'd do the same thing I did in English. I'd take this part of the sentence and I would move that to the back. So I would just start off with, let me get red. So I would just start off with I, o, te, le'i, avatua, se mea ai, and then I would put this highlighted portion right here, and I would put it in right there. Okay, that's all I do. And you would do the same thing with the second sentence. You would just take the independent clause and move it to the back, and you can do that. You can just say olea ta e ele levaengalea, and then you'd move that part to the back. So you just start off with this. I lato te lei o ile lotu olea ta e ele levaengalea. Okay? So there we go. So again, if this is hard, don't worry, it's hard for everyone. But just remember, okay, the reason why I split up this before is because I need to use the non-past tense marker or the habitual tense marker te in the second part of the clause, or depending on the first, if you did do the switcheroo, if you did this sentence structure, then if you need to use the tense marker te in that clause with before, then you would use this form of the sentence structure. This is the hard part, okay? This right here. I, descriptive pronoun, te lei. That's all you need to remember. So just remember that, and I hope I'm not beating a dead horse, okay? So if you did have trouble with that, I do encourage watching that again, maybe even for everyone. Just watch that portion one more time so that you can concrete this information in, okay? So let's move to the last version of before that I'm going to talk about, okay? So in English, a lot of times before may come before a noun, and in that case it acts as a preposition. And in Samoan, if you have before come before a noun, you use this sentence structure. You'll use I or ao, and then lei ooe. Okay? So, and that just means while not yet come to. And that's a funny way of saying it, but that's the way that they say that in Samoan. So let's just, again, look at some of these equivalents, or sorry, some of these sentences. So I shaved my beard, okay? So let's just translate that as if we, if it was just by a sentence by itself. And for the sake of time, I'm going to go a little bit more speedily. I think we've had a lot of practice together. And then before the meeting came, okay? So in this case, I don't need to split up my my before, but I do need to use this form of the before. Ai lei o mai le phono, okay? And this is just one of those things that is a little different in Samoan, okay? A little different before the meeting came or before the meeting started, if you wanted to. I lei o. This right here is the thing that's making it come or to be or something like that, okay? So moving on to our second sentence. And again, I'm not going to translate all of this. We need to move on for the sake of time. So before that day came, so let's just do that. Before that day came, ao lei o ile aso lana. Before that day came. So that is how I would translate before that day came in Samoan. Au lei o ile aso lana. And then the woman gave birth. You can translate that just like we've translated all of our sentences, and that would be sa whanau le fafine. Okay? And then moving on, I will come back before December. Olea. So this part you just translate as normal. And then if I wanted to do the last part, this before December, I just say I lei o. Before comes ya December. And you're probably saying, Colin, you told me right here that it's that. At the very end of the sentence, it's an e. And that's just a preposition, okay? And if you remember back in my preposition video, ya comes before months. I don't know why I had a hard time saying that, but ya is the preposition that you use before months. So you use the proper preposition in this case, okay? So I don't want to spend too much time on that. It wouldn't be the end of the world if you said I te semba, but they would just probably correct you maybe and say ya te semba. Okay, so now we're moving on to after. After is a lot shorter than before, you'll be relieved to know. So we're talking about after. And the way that I say that in Samoan is when finished. Okay? Again, it's not directly translated as after, but it's the Samoan equivalent of after. And in the past tense, you use when and then done. That's how you say it after in the past tense. And then in the future tense, you say when done for the future tense. And if it's in the middle of the sentence, you say pea uma. Okay? So that's how I say after in Samoan. And again, we're not going to translate these sentences. We're not going to take a lot of time. I'm just going to go over the part that we're learning today. So after the mat was woven, that does include after. So I'm going to translate this with you. So after the mat was woven, the was indicates to me a past tense. So I say ina, ua, uma. So when done is basically what I'm saying. Or you can just think of ina, ua, uma as after for the past tense. Okay? The mat was woven. This is a little bit harder. And the one thing that you do need to remember that I didn't yet say is ona can be used with expressions because uma is an auxiliary verb. Okay? So a lot of times when you have something like a verb come right after this, you need to use ona with it because uma is an auxiliary verb. Okay? So ina ua uma ona. Okay? And then I would say wove in the mat. Okay, lalanga. Whoops. Lalanga le fala. Okay, and hopefully that was a terrible F. Le fala. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. And then I would translate the next part of the sentence the way that we've always done it. Sa alu atu le tina I le fale oloa. Okay. Moving on to our second part of the sentence, and again, we could translate this pretty easily. We'll have our meal. Olea faia lato mea ai, and then again, you need to use, this is a future tense, after church, okay, after church, and so I use pea uma, and then church is le lotu, okay, so hopefully, if I'm going fast, pause the video and translate this on your own. After the missionary memorized his lessons, we can go over that part. After the missionary memorized his lessons, and this is in the past tense, so ina, ua, uma, okay? And then ona, I have a verb coming, so tauloto, ina, memorize. Ele faifeau, and the reason why I use ele faifeau is because this is what kind of sentence structure? This is a transitive sentence structure, and so it has two noun phrases in it, and so you need to distinguish the one who's doing the action, and so that's ele faifeau. The A marks right here, this A right here marks that the missionary is the one doing the action, and then the next noun phrase is his lessons, and that's ana lessona, so that will act as the object, okay? So hopefully that made sense, and then he rested in class. You can probably translate that on your own, and it's sa ia malolo, okay? So the fourth and final sentence that I give you as an example is after you clean the house. We'll translate that one together. So this is a future tense. You haven't yet cleaned the house, so it's future. Auma, and that was a terrible A. Auma, you clean the house. So auma ona, because there's a verb right here, and then you're the one doing the cleaning. So I use you, ta pena le fale. Okay, so I think we could translate that. And then cut the weeds and tall grass in the back. And the way that I would say that in Samoan, and we haven't really learned how to say commands yet in Samoan, but you would say ya at the beginning of the part of the command, and then you would say e vele levau itua, cut the grass in the back. And so we haven't really learned that. But if you want to learn how to say weed or cut the tall grass in the back, it's vele levau, and you'll hear that a lot in Samoan. Okay, so that is our example sentences. Here are some practice sentences, and so I would encourage you to pause the video, give it your best effort, and try to translate these sentences into their equivalents, whether it be Samoan or English, and then check with what my sentences are. And if they're close, good for you. If they're not, then I'd encourage you to go back and review wherever needed, okay? Whether it be in this video or in our sentence structure videos, it would be good to get some practice, okay? So here are the answers. And until next time, guys, tofa soifua, thanks for watching my videos, and bye.